After the death of Emperor Palpatine at the Battle of Endor, the Empire fragmented into many different warlord kingdoms and factions that all sought to gain power against one another as well as against the New Republic at the same time. This video covers 14 of the post-Endor major warlords and factions, as well as my ranking of them out of 10 for how each faction was led and with their given resources. First up is the Imperial Ruling Council, which was basically all that was left of the Imperial government after Endor. The ruling council was definitely very ineffective at maintaining control over the Empire, as every Imperial with a fleet or any significant military force immediately carved out their own empires or warlord kingdoms. The ruling council was headed by Saint Pestage, who was pretty incompetent, and the council would even reach out to other warlords such as Truton Teradok and Blitzer Harsk for military support. The ruling council would be driven off of Coruscant and exist in several different forms under the Dark Empire and Crimson Empire later on, but was mostly full of idiotic politicians. They are getting a 3 out of 10 for only being able to have some diplomatic ties with other warlords and factions for protection, and for lasting as long as they did. Second is Trioculus, who was backed up by the Central Committee of Grand Moffs, and he had pretended to be the son of Emperor Palpatine to try to claim some form of legitimacy, but in reality the Central Committee of Grand Moffs just kinda wanted to have their guy in charge. And that guy was Trioculus, because he was a complete idiot. Now, Trioculus probably was dropped several times on his head when he was a small child, because this idiot was about as stupid as any Imperial warlord comes. He had no force abilities, but always wanted to have them, and therefore he had implants created inside of him to project the illusion of possessing Force lightning. And this moron also thought that wearing Darth Vader's glove would give him the ability to force choke people. Like, what a moron. Trioculus also killed several high-ranking and competent Imperial military officers within his faction, which helped hinder his forces. And with all of that, Trioculus is clearly mentally disabled and gets a negative 1,000 out of 10. Next is an actually more competent Imperial warlord, Terranold Screed. Now, Screed had previously been a very successful, experienced naval officer, and he had reached the rank of commander prior to 35 BBY, and became a vice admiral during the Clone Wars when given command of the Coruscant Defense Fleet. As an admiral during the Age of the Empire, he led the Western Reaches operations and took down various separatist holdouts. Screed was present at the Battle of Endor, and after the death of Palpatine, he became a warlord who carved out territory from the former Empire like all the other warlords. He would, however, make a bad alliance with Imperial warlord Zinj, who executed him for treason after learning that Screed was in contact with Gilad Pellaeon. I give Screed a 6 out of 10, as he was definitely experienced, but was also overconfident and allied himself with Zinj without sensing that Fatty would betray him. Zinj was the only Imperial warlord to have actually been given the rank of warlord of the Empire by the Imperials, and this fat boy was very intelligent, but at the same time was mega power hungry. In the post-Endor period, Zinj initially claimed loyalty to the Imperial Ruling Council, but was actually carving out his own large piece of the galaxy like most other warlords. Based on territory and assets alone, Zinj was perhaps the most powerful warlord in the early post-Endor era, but he was very overconfident and reckless in his actions against the New Republic because, power hungriness. Big Guy gets a 5 out of 10, as he was also heavily drawing the attention of the New Republic, and he was made a high priority for Rogue Squadron to defeat because, all he wanted to do was attack the New Republic without really consolidating land. Next is one of the most famous and most successful Imperial warlords, and that is the man, the myth, the great Grand Admiral Thrawn himself. He had previously built up the Empire of the Hand in the unknown regions of the galaxy, which was meant to defend the galaxy from many threats in the unknown regions, such as the Yuzang Vong, Vagari, Killix, and more. Anyway, Thrawn conducted the Thrawn campaign against the New Republic with the support of the mad Dark Jedi clone Joruus C'baoth, and he used technology from Wayland. Thrawn was a brilliant strategist and made extensive use of Sparti cloning as well, but Thrawn would be killed at the height of the Thrawn campaign in the Battle of Bilbringi by his personal bodyguard Rook. Rook killed Thrawn because of the Empire's policy towards the Noghri and for not repairing the ecological disaster on Honoghr that had occurred during the Clone Wars. Additionally, his alliance with C'baoth was iffy at best, and sometimes Thrawn could not control the Mad Jedi. Therefore, Thrawn gets a solid 9 out of 10. The Dark Empire was led by a reborn Palpatine in 10 ABY and had a 10 out of 10 for starting potential due to having the Galaxy Gun, 2 Eclipse-class Star Destroyers, many Imperial Star Destroyers, and World Devastators, but the reborn Emperor was reckless with his resources and lost 3 of his main super weapons in relatively incompetent ways and was betrayed by several members of his own forces. The Emperor had also been in a rapid state of decay as his clones were all destroyed. All in all, the Dark Empire gets a 7 out of 10 as it represents a lot of lost potential for the Empire. The end of the Reborn Empire gave rise to the Crimson Empire after the fall of the Dark Empire. The Crimson Empire was led by former Imperial Royal Guardsman Karnor Jax, who led a betrayal of Palpatine and the Dark Empire by poisoning the last of Palpatine's clones. Jax then seized control over the Empire with the help from the Imperial Ruling Council. Although most Imperial warlords who united with the Dark Empire returned to their own independent operations, the Crimson Empire really represented the only unified political structure of the original Empire left. However, Jax was killed by another Imperial Royal Guard, Kir Kanos, for the betrayal of the Dark Empire. Jax was succeeded by a few political morons of the Imperial Ruling Council who were essentially puppets in a game by the Yuzhang Vong. Overall, the Crimson Empire gets a 6 out of 10 for the reasons being that it started out strong, but then quickly imploded after Jax's death. Next is Grand Moff Ardus Kane, who led one of the most successful Imperial Warlord kingdoms, which had some border skirmishes with Fatso Zinj, but mostly stayed out of fighting between other warlords and the New Republic. Kane also attracted many corporate sponsors to his faction to create a thriving and relatively neutral area within the galaxy. Kane supported the Dark Empire and would be killed after being betrayed by Grand Admiral Octavian Grant, who gave him up to the New Republic in a lurid ambush. Overall, Kane gets a strong 9 out of 10 for his sustainability as a warlord, as his faction did not attempt to expand outwards and mostly consolidated power. After the Battle of Endor, Blitzer Harsk took a large fleet to the deep core as he believed that the Imperial Ruling Council was weak, and he created his own territory called the Zero Command. Harsk had been one of the first warlords, and officially he claimed that he was loyal to the ruling council like Zinj had done so before, but Harsk had his own plans. Zero Command joined the Dark Empire, but after Shadowhand, Harsk was able to expand unlike many other warlords, and he became one of the largest deep core warlords. Harsk would be killed during Imperial reunification when Dala released poison gas at the TOS station, which killed many major warlords. Overall, I give Blitzer Harsk a 9 out of 10 for being able to gain what he did with the limited resources that he started with. Sandor Del Vardis had previously served under Ardus Kane and split off in the Deep Core, where he promoted himself after taking over many Imperial walkers. Del Vardis had been supported by the planet Eridu, whose ruling family had thought that Del Vardis would just protect their own territory. However, Del Vardis was very ambitious and founded the Eridu Authority to aggressively conquer more territory. However, after Operation Shadow Hand, Del Vardis became an obscure warlord as he would become very weak but still remain somewhat relevant, and he would be killed during Imperial reunification by Dala. Therefore, he gets a 5 out of 10. Truton Teradok led the Greater Maldrun after the Battle of Endor and had a non-combative rivalry with Zinj in the early Warlord era for expansion. After acquiring significant territory, he generally avoided conflict. Teradok remained out of the Thrawn campaign and refused to support the Grand Admiral, but he would join Palpatine and the Dark Empire. The Maldrud was severely weakened by Operation Shadow Hand and their alliance with the Dark Empire, like many other warlord kingdoms. Afterwards, he united with his brother Kosh, where Truton primarily fought against Blitzer Harsk's Zero Command in the Deep Core in a waste of Star Destroyers before he was killed in Imperial reunification, and therefore he gets a 5 out of 10. Kosh Teradok was the brother of Truton Teradok and aided the Maldrun through aggressive expansion, but Zinj's territory prevented the Maldrun from expanding northward as neither warlord wanted to fight one another. He carved out his own small empire and did pretty well for himself. His brother Truton would lose all of his resources and come into Kosh's territory and unite to form the Federated Teradok Union. Kosh was occasionally allied and against Blitzer Harsk for some time, and after the death of his brother Truton, Kosh lost all of his Deep Core territory, but kept his small kingdom outside of the Deep Core. He would later be assassinated by the New Republic in 13 ABY, and I give him a nice 8 out of 10. Natasi Dala reunified the Imperial Warlords by killing 13 of the major ones at Tos Station after a few hours of squabbling, and she took control over the United Warlord fleets. She had been isolated from the Galactic Civil War, commanding the Maw Irregular Fleet. In the post-Endor period, she negotiated a ceasefire between Zero Command and the Maldrude's Crimson Command, made up of Red Star Destroyers, and was able to get the Warlords together at Tos Station. Commanding the United Fleet, however, she was not the best military leader, as some of her tactics just included sending a Star Destroyer to attack planets. Dala gets a 6 out of 10 for being able to unite all of the warlords for some time and having political and diplomatic skills, but her command of the United Warlord fleet was not well conducted. Last and certainly not least is Jalad Pellaeon, who rose through the ranks in the Clone Wars and would become Thrawn's second in command as well as his protege. Pellaeon was a very experienced military officer, and after the death of Thrawn, he would transfer between a couple of different warlords, and eventually Dala transferred command of the Imperial Remnant to Pellaeon after a string of her disastrous minor campaigns. In preparing for a peace and ceasefire between the New Republic and Imperial Remnant, Pellaeon dealt with the restored Empire, which was pretty much just a little faction made up of Imperial hardliners within the Imperial Ruling Council. Knowing that the Empire could not defeat the New Republic, Pellaeon would negotiate and agree to the Bastion Accord, which set up the coexistence of the New Republic and Imperial Remnant and secured the Remnant's future as the Galactic Civil War came to an end. He gets a perfect 10 out of 10 score. And that concludes my ranking of 14 of the Empire's most significant warlord factions in the post-Endor era. What do you think of my rankings? Do you agree or disagree, and why? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.